as we look into the future, we have to stay positive and optimistic. At the age of 3, my father passed away. So my mom was a widow. I was the only child. Yeah, so it was just me and my mom. And so my mom was working really hard, and she really loved me. And so my mom said to me that I'm responsible for studying and she's responsible for making money. And so there is a very clear division of labor. And she kept on asking me to become a useful person. What is a useful person? Well, as a child, you need to be well behaved, you need to study hard. And so I think that I am a useful person in the society. I need to keep on learning. I need to stay positive and see what I can do to contribute to the society. And I was pretty good at math, and yet I wasn't very good at languages. I did not have very good memory, and so I couldn't memorize articles, and I didn't really perform well in my examination. And I didn't really like to study hard. I just wanted to understand. And for mathematics and science, you only have to understand. And so I was very bad at my English subjects, but I had to learn English because I was a businessman, and I had to give to write articles, and I have to give speeches in English. And yet, when I was a kid, I wasn't very good. So I was really well behaved. My marks in school were pretty good, especially math and science. I was an introvert. I didn't really enjoy public speaking, not in high school. And when I was in college, I was a leader. So I had to do some public speaking. I am from Lugang. My mom, I was a single son. I went to Taipei all by myself, and so I became very independent because I really loved my mom, and so I had to take very good care of myself. Most of the people from the southern part of Taiwan, if they perform really well academically, they would go into medical school, but I didn't want to go with the flow. So when I was filling out my choices for university, I didn't apply for any medical school. That's just the way it was in southern part of Taiwan. And then I was awarded the Edison Award. I was in my junior year in high school because I was the top student in math, science subjects. And I ranked, I think, the 50th overall. And so the rest of my subjects were not as good. In my university entrance exam, I didn't really perform too well. I was given a vacancy at the mathematics department of National Chen Gong University in Tainan. I didn't want to go, and so I had to repeat my senior year in high school all by myself in Taipei. In Taiwan, situation at university is quite different from the situation here. We had a lot of fun at university. and I was accepted by National Jiao Tong University by the first cohort of electronic engineering. There were 70 students, 70 undergraduates. That was the entire population of our department. And so I was in college and I wanted to play, I wanted to have a good time. So I founded several student organizations, and I also was a member in the chess association, the ball association. And you can't really boss around because your students were all your peers, and my job was to make sure that everybody had a good time. And so I became a very popular person. And so, as I mentioned, I was not very good in arts and languages, and I was good at science and technology subjects. And most of the professors who taught science and mathematics, they were all recruited from the United States. They were very young, and they were very, very critical, and they were very, very stern, and they would not give you a very high mark. And so for some reason, I scored really well in my exams, and I became very confident. And most of my peers, they after the studies, they wanted to go to the United States, and yet I was not like them. After finishing my national service, I went into the graduate institute in Taiwan locally, and then in 1960, an export processing zone was founded in Nanzi, Kaohsiung. And so there was a lot of electronic processing work from the States being carried out in Taiwan. And a lot of students were recruited even before they graduated. They were offered $200 a month as their salary, and before they even began working, they were sent to the United States to be trained. And so we were exposed to the latest technology. That's very important. And because my English was not very good, I did not want to work for a foreign firm. And so I went into a local company founded by a Taiwanese person, which is the first semiconductor packaging company to have an R&D division in Taiwan. Most of the companies at that time were just doing OEM. They did not have to set up an R&D division. And so I was involved in R&D. And then my boss and I co-founded another company. And so I developed different things as mentioned by Professor Liu. And so I was one of the co-founders, and the company was growing, and I was growing. And so I was involved in R&D, manufacturing, purchasing, and marketing. And at that time, microprocessors started to become important. The reason why Intel developed microprocessor is because for calculator, but the design was cancelled, and so it was the design became a general purpose microprocessor. So I was one of the four runners to be involved in microprocessor. And so the company was very successful and was making a lot of money, and yet it went bust. Is because we didn't really have a very good governance. The money that this company was making financed some of the property projects. And so I had to quit this company, and then I started my own company with some of my colleagues from this company. And so we were pretty good at manufacturing in Taiwan at that time. So I realized that in order for us to create something, we have to focus on research and development and microprocessing and marketing. And so, as I mentioned, I was involved in microprocessor. Now, steam engine triggered the first industrial revolution, and I believed that a microprocessor was going to trigger the second industrial revolution. And so we would spend a lot of time and effort on the research of microprocessor. And that was a very, very important timing for us. And so I mentioned this already. I am still not very good at public speaking, and yet I get invited. So you were the premium in Taiwan. Why did you invite me? To be the chairman of National Culture and Arts Foundation. And I was the first chairman to have come from the business sector. Most of the other chairmen were from arts and literature. And I am going to continue to volunteer so that I can make contribution. And I think there is a principle. Now, the principle for manager, it could be any organization, it could be the family, or it can be the leader of a student organization. You need to have this principle. Now, this was formulated more than 2,500 years ago, but we could adapt it into the modern context. So I've given this principle 3 core. As an individual, you have to create value, but value can only be created jointly by different stakeholders. And we all talk about sustainable development. So how can we achieve sustainable development? Well, the only way to do it is to be adaptive, to be innovative, and to be very dynamic and flexible.